Vasudevendra Yogindram Natva Jnana Pradam Gurum Mumukshunam Hitarthaya Tattvabodho Bhidiyate. Last week, we asked the question, what is Ananda? And we gave different terms. Most of us contributed. And this was wonderful because you can see how every contribution referenced a different word. Some of us were more prone to kind of more emotional words, what I call emotional words, like Lorena said, fulfillment, and someone said bliss, and then so these are emotional words. You relate to them emotionally, and someone said void, and there were a few more words given, but they were more in a sort of an intellectual language. And what we have to understand is the way the teaching works is it's not just intellectual, because people have different ways of relating. And if you just use intellectual words, then even if they're right and they're pointing to the truth, then the listener, because they have a different style of receiving data, they may not quite capture the fullness of what you intend to say. Therefore, the intention of asking last week, what is definition of Ananda, is just to show you how there's a different word coming from a different mind. However, at the end, when everyone contributed, what did I then say? I then defined the actual definition of Ananda, which is not two. And then I explained if there's two, then no matter how big one is, if there's one single atom outside that big, then that big is limited by that atom. So that big could be hanging out and chilling out, and it's enjoying itself as the big one, but it's always concerned, oh, but I am missing out on this little atom. I am not this little atom. Therefore, in that sense, it becomes limited. So not two means everything is included. It's all inclusive. There's not one thing, big or small, that is excluded. Therefore, the definition of Ananda was defined by the teacher after we all expounded our definitions of Ananda. And this is how the teaching works. So this means you can use intellectual or emotional words as long as they are pointing or referencing back onto the teacher's definition, which is not the teacher's definition, but is the definition of the scriptures. That way you can say bliss, you can say fulfillment, you can say, what these other words were said, as long as in the back of the mind you understand what this is referring to is it's not two. There's no division between this or that. It is one whole, inclusive, total reality, which is without any separation or divisions. There's not two things there. We also asked the question, why do we use the word Ananda, right? If you just imagine right now, suppose there's a group of scientists and they are coming together and they discover something amazing and they want to announce this to the public. And they announce it in two different ways. Now, just pay attention to the language that I use and see how you respond. Suppose the scientists, and we're supposing an earlier time, so we haven't kind of exposed to the internet, so we haven't heard many terms. And the scientists want to announce this to the newspaper, and they say, newsflash, scientists discover infinity, exclamation mark. And then you look at that and you go, okay, good on you. I hope they succeed at finding infinity. I hope they are going to subscribe to the newsletter and keep me up to date. Scientists have discovered reality, this infinity. Cool, good stuff. I hope they succeed. And then you get on with your stuff, right? You get on with your life. You forget about what you read. No big deal. But now suppose a smarter group of scientists, they say, newsflash, scientists discover infinite source of happiness into which you can tap into right now. We're talking about the same thing, just worded differently. What are you going to do? You're going to drop everything, giving birth to a baby, stop halfway. Let me look at the full newspaper article, read that. I want to tap into that knowledge right now, right? I want to tap into infinite happiness right now. So in other words, the rishis have thought about this. There is an emotional nature of a human being, and we are generally, by and large, driven emotionally. And therefore, you have to appeal to this kind of personality. And so for this reason, we use the word Ananda. So it's not black or white. It's not just all rationale, all logic. It's all just head stuff. You have to think holistically to bring this individual who's a mixture of so many standpoints. You have to bring them slowly. You have to weave them and bring them to the final truth. And this is not so straightforward as we usually like it to be. It's kind of, there's a lot of ropes to untie and a lot of knots, right? It's not just one knot and then the whole thing unties. So another thing is, see, tradition means it's a well-rounded system whose every word is used for a purpose. Ananda is used for a purpose. Sat, Anantam, Chit is all used for a purpose. Now, last week, the word Shunya was used. And the reason why I did not accept Shunya is because, see, every word has a lot of teaching behind it. It's backed by a lot of information. And even if this word could be relating, for example, Shunya is nothingness, right? But it's from Buddhism. But now you have to now ask, what do you mean by nothingness? We can say nothingness is nirgunam, but nirgunam is a different tradition. That's called Brahman, right? That's consciousness. But now is Shunya, right, referring to nirguna? Is it referring to consciousness? And what is their definition of consciousness, right? And how did they arrive to that consciousness? Is there any loopholes there? And did they miss one variable? So could their definition of consciousness be 99% there, but not completely there? Therefore, to mixing these words into a different tradition not only contaminates the tradition over time, but it establishes a potential. First of all, you make students like you because you just keep on accepting everything. Yeah, sure, it's Shunya. It's also that. Yeah, it's also that. And it initially seems like it's all okay. But what it ends up doing within 5 years, when you look at the long picture, is the person ends up living on an undercurrent of confusion. And this undercurrent of confusion can be seen a lot in pop culture spirituality, like those XYZ Gs, the ones that end with their Gs. And I'm not going to mention the names, but in the 1970s, especially 1980s, this was full of these XYZ Gs. And they taught a little... Okay, here it comes. And it's full of just a little bit of Taoism, a little bit of Buddhism, a little bit of Advaita, a little bit of, Chinese tradition, a little bit of, put it all in. And everyone is attracted to it. We're all loving each other. A little bit of orgies. This was also included, by the way, right? And so it's all just in one big soup of mixture. And then you look at that person 20, 30 years later, and they are still searching for the truth. Still, when the mouth opens, it's just a load of confusion, a fountain of confusion pouring out like vomit. And Vedanta, the reason why it survived for so long is it's strict in the manner that it preserves its authentic knowledge, which is a product of rishis who have contemplated this for thousands of years. And the Vedas is also considered non-negatable knowledge. It cannot be negated from any standpoint, no matter how much you attack it. For that reason, it need not borrow words from other traditions because we simply don't need it. It's a complete system of its own. Yeah. So this is wonderful to know that it's what's being taught, and you're not being taught mass spirituality, which is popular, but within 5 years, it doesn't cause harmony, nor does it establish a peacefulness, nor does it establish clarity in reference to yourself and the whole. This word Ananda cannot mean happiness, like literally, because if it were to mean happiness, then because these three words, Sat and Chit and Ananda, are never apart, that would mean that, right, Ananda would always be all the time available to you. You would always be happy in whatever time or experience you're ever having. You could not ever be sad, or you could not ever contemplate reality because you will be so blissed out all the time. And this reminds me of, it just came to my mind when last week, so I want to share it, is a cartoon. Someone drew it up. I don't think they were really, into Ananda, but they were just a cartoonist. And they found there was a man who was walking by, and he saw a magic lamp, and he rubbed the lamp and a genie came out, and he asked the genie asked him, what would you like? You only got one wish. And the man, obviously, what we all want, said, I want to be happy all the time. And the genie granted him that wish. The moment he granted him that wish, the fella, established a grin immediately, and he started just dancing constantly with a grin. And so he was walking so happy, dancing back to his home. And as he approached his house, he saw the yellow police tape surrounding his house. There was a murder case. Someone murdered his wife. And he came inside the house, and they let him in because they know he is the husband. And there his wife is lying on the ground, with a little tape around, and he's just dancing with a grin, so ecstatic. And the police looks at him and says, "You fool! What's so funny about this? Why are you laughing?" And he's just answering, I can't help it. I'm so happy, right? And the police looks at this and goes, "Okay, I think we've got our murderer." And so they arrest him. And inside the jail, he's still dancing ecstatically. And he's looking down and says, my life is gone. My life is ruined. And he's still dancing and smiling. So look at that. So this guy's got Ananda 24/7, right? And therefore, you can't function if this was really the reality. And therefore, the first step is releasing these childlike notions that we want it to be. We want liberation to be this happy 24 ecstatic experience, but in reality, if you bring in the rationale, you could not function like that in reality. Therefore, Ananda has an implied meaning of limitlessness. You cannot attach any experience onto it. Okay, so this was Ananda, and before moving on to creation, do we have any comments?
I guess from this sense of infinity, the source of infinite joy, came a plethora of what Hindus call the 33 million gods and goddesses concept, so that it makes us easy to visualize at least a glimpse of that infinite feeling through providing name and form to the objects of worship. Am I right?
That's true. And because our minds, we're born relating to the world and gross objects, for that reason, you have to, as I said, appeal to the mind that starts out, which is in forms. So you have to give this very mind a form, but not just any form like a skateboard or a bicycle, but you give them something that is more closer to something that emotionally incites that divinity. And therefore, we have different expressions of gods and goddesses because there are many personalities to appeal to. And this is the wonderful thing about Hinduism, is that, you may relate to power, you may appreciate wealth, Lakshmi, right? And you say, well, I need more Lakshmi in my life. And therefore, instead of just saying this abstract word Lakshmi, she has a form, and she represents wealth and different kinds of wealth, not just money, but spiritual wealth and wealth, family wealth and house wealth and all sorts of wealths. And therefore, when you pray to Lakshmi, you're praying indirectly to that divinity. Even though I don't know what the divinity is, but it's still a step forward to make my mind subtle enough so that one day I may start to grasp these subtle matters.
Yeah, you mentioned that Sat, Chit, and Anand are not three different worlds. It's like one state of being or one attitude. So can you please expand on that? Because by definition, Ananda will be present wherever there is Chit as well as Sat, right?
Correct.
It can't be in the absence of both. So can you just expand on what is Sat, Chit, and Anand as one, not three different states?
Got it. So therefore, the question is this one reality. There is one reality, and this one reality, for the sake of grasping it from all possible angles, we give it different names. And the three minimum names to understand it are three: Sat and Chit and Ananda. You can also say effulgent, all-pervasive, all-powerful, infinite, eternal, nityam, right? Purnaha, full, etc. There's a million names. But then you give it three minimum words. If you just say it's existence, then you say, okay, well, yeah, I understand existence, but it's kind of inert. It's kind of boring. I'm very familiar with existence, right? And what now? What? So I'm just going to be existence after death? What's the intent? What's the motivation for me to attain existence after I die? I already exist. So why should I what kind of existence is it? Is it just like this black existence where there's nothing after I attain moksha and drop my body? And suppose you have this problem. Now, who wants the moksha? Who wants to attain moksha and drop their body? Right? It's like afraid. I'm afraid to die because I'll go out of existence. I'll just exist as a black state of nothing. So therefore, we then say, well, this reality is not just existence, because it's like a dead word. It's so abstract. There's no relation there, existence. So then you have to give it a different emotional appeal so that you can relate with it a little bit better. And you say, well, it's not just existence. It is it's existence in which everything obtains. So there's nothing outside this existence. This existence is not like it's one little existence here, and there's another existence called heaven, and another called Brahmaloka, and I don't know which one. For now, I'm going to go to earth, and then heaven, a little bit of Brahmaloka. It is the existence in which everything is. Nothing is outside of it. And this nothing outside of it is what Ananda wants to communicate. Therefore, you are that which misses nothing, which lacks nothing, which includes everything. And not only that, but you are fully aware of yourself as that one. You are conscious of yourself, the limitless one, as the limitless one. That means you're not conscious of yourself as, I'm just a little being, a little wave. But I'm conscious of myself as the entire ocean from which no waves are excluded. And the water, which is the truth of all ocean, which is the truth of the entire ocean, the truth of all the waves, but at the same time, I remain intrinsically free of the ocean and the waves. And this ocean expands, this total reality expands where? Does it stop? Does it have edges? No, it is infinite in all directions. There is no boundaries how much it extends out. And therefore, these words, Mina, are to communicate the same existence, but give it different standpoints. That's all it is. It's just a different standpoint. Like, what you take, what can you have? A book or whatever, right? A flower. Maybe something new, right? The standpoint of, the standpoint of this, it's a bridge. From the standpoint of this, it's a step or whatever. But, this step is not excluded from the whole thing. And this bridge is not excluded from the whole thing. So therefore, if I just tell you, you are the steps, right? You're the steps. Then you say, wow, that's nice. But if I tell you you're also the bridge, and you say, well, that's even better. And then I tell you, you're actually the whole thing, which doesn't exclude the steps, doesn't exclude the emotions, the intellect, the world, the other worlds, doesn't exclude any of these different forms and names. And therefore, for that reason, Ananda is used to help you understand that it includes everything. The existence includes one whole thing, and you are that existence, which is for a while obtaining as an individual called Mina or Andre. For a while.
I think I was trying to apply these three words by dividing the Jagat in living beings and non-living beings. So I understand if I apply it on myself,
right,
a human being, it has existence, Sat, it has consciousness, Chit, and limitless, Anand or bliss, right?
Got it.
But if I try to apply it on this object that you showed, it is Sat, it exists, it is not Chit, because it does not have consciousness. At least I don't know if it has or not.
Got it, understood.
And limitless, I think I can say, because it's part of isness, entire existence, it is limitless too.
Yes, it enjoys a limitless reality. It enjoys, it manifests from the limitless reality. So remember, Sat Chit, right? We have to create a small distinction between what is manifest, Mina, and what is the truth of that which is manifest. So now you're going into Ishvara, right? So Ishvara and the world, Jagat. So yes, the Jagat is a manifestation of the limitless reality, but the limitlessness, this word Ananda, does not necessarily apply to what is manifest. You know why? Because what is that all that's manifest right now? In this moment, is it? No, there's so much more that is yet to be manifest. So you cannot say that what is manifest right now is limitless, because it's not. There's so much more that is yet to come. Therefore, limitlessness comes from, or is referring to, the reality from which everything stems from. And one more thing is that we said, Mina, last 2 weeks ago, that, see, it's easy to say I have consciousness and existence. But in reference to objects, there's two ways to look at this. One way is, I said, that this consciousness obtains in every object as the prameya, the object. And it obtains as in a form of all knowledge, right? So the all knowledge manifests as the physical object. So what you see is the physical object, but actually the truth of that physical object is knowledge. Now you say, well, how can knowledge be physical? How is this knowledge? It's solid. It's just like a dream. Just like when you dream, right? When you're in sleep, right? Total deep sleep. From you, this nirvikalpa atma, comes out a potential, comes this knowledge. The whole dream is a manifestation of the knowledge of your mind, isn't it? It doesn't, it's not referencing to someone else's life. It's referencing to your life. And so your mind has a way to make this dream appear solid. But the whole thing, the whole dream is really, despite its solidity, its gravity, its I can't go through, despite that, the whole thing is actually just knowledge of your mind. So this is why in Vedanta we say, even if it's material, that material, I tell you, the scientists cannot find the smallest particle in the universe. What they end up going, whether it's quantum field theory or quantum physics, is they end up going into the same source, which is mathematics. So they end up going into concepts, because that's what mathematics is. But what is a concept? It is an expression, it's a manifestation of knowledge. And therefore, even concept resolves into knowledge, and knowledge is that which can only put things together within a conscious being. So a rock too is just knowledge obtaining, conscious knowledge obtaining as a rock. And therefore, we don't see consciousness, but in the reference to, from the standpoint of all knowledge, which manifests that rock, it is pervaded. What's the truth of that all knowledge? Consciousness, okay? Because all knowledge cannot live without it existing. And wherever there's existence, that's exactly where Chit is also, okay? And the second way to answer this is, the reason why you don't see consciousness in a rock and you do see in a human being is because a human being carries a different kind of matter, which is able to also capture consciousness. And that matter is called the subtle body. The rock doesn't have a subtle body. It only has a gross body. It's made of 5 elements, the sthula pancha bhuta, the physical 5 elements. The human being's brain is made of the physical 5 elements. But then the brain is in such a certain kind of matter that it's able to host an even subtler kind of matter, which is the mind, called the subtle body. And because the subtle body is there, I can perceive consciousness indirectly because you're moving, because you're thinking, and so on. Whereas a rock, I can only perceive it no different than I can perceive a dead human body. When a body is dead, what's the difference between that dead body and the rock? 0 difference. Understand? Because the dead body, what happened? A moment ago, it had a subtle body. And because it had a subtle body, I could perceive consciousness, indirectly, of course. Now that the subtle body has disconnected, that's what's left 5 elements, same with that coffin or that ash or that ground on which the body is lying on.
Can I share something? Something that helped me understand, and it might help some of you, maybe not everyone. When we did our last course, Bhagavad Gita, towards the end, you Andre, brought up the importance of understanding space as something very, very subtle. Because at the end of the day, everything resolves into something that's even subtler than space, which is Satchitananda. Now, so what really helped me is to really meditate on the nature of space. So what I thought about was, if you get a rock and you put it in a bucket of water, it's going to displace the water and the water is going to flow out of the bucket. Okay. But if you think you're putting it in, well, say there's no water in there and you're just putting it in space, it's still going to displace the air, but it's not actually going to displace the space. So that means that inside that rock, there's still space. Yeah. So when you showed us the cup last week and you said there's space here, there's space here. Okay. You move and the space didn't move. But what I'm looking at is here. There's space in there as well.
Indeed.
Okay. And if you look from a physics point of view, you can say, okay, yes, because there's molecules and between the molecules, there's space. But I wasn't trying to think, I was just trying to think it's still solid, but it's still occupying space. It's not displacing space. So when I'm out in the bush walking and I look at a mountain and I meditate on that. Yes, it is a mountain, but it's also space in there. And I even think underneath my feet, I'm walking on the solid earth and there's space underneath. So much so when I do it really well, I feel a bit of vertigo, like I could fall through. Okay. So that then I thought, okay, my being doesn't end here at the limit of my skin. You know, it's all something like space. So there's no difference between my being and a rock. And I do actually look at rocks a lot. There's no difference. It looks like I'm in a different position, but at the end of the day, we're all space, except we're not all space. We're something a little subtler.
You know, if you look at a biological a cell under a microscope, you see, you know, a single cell that grows into 4 cells, 8 cells, and so on. That 2 or 4, that wasn't there just a moment ago. It arose. Actually, they say the first thing, you know, everything comes out of space, and so that cell 2, 4, 8, it rises out of space. In fact, even if you look at the beginnings of creation, I looked up a little bit about this, and you know, helium and hydrogen are the first 2 periodic table of elements that come. And now, you know, they just, you know, by their combination, they just somehow created, they arose out of space. So even in the Vedas, they say that everything arises out of space. Like it's kind of hard to kind of grasp, but everything, just nothing there, and it's just out of space. It just comes out. Now, careful, we're not saying, you know, things come out of nothing, because space is not nothing. Space is something. So space is still a 5 elements. So it's true that everything really does come out of space. And even if you look at anything under a microscope, you actually can't find physical solid matter. You can't find it. It's not there. It just kind of resolves into these mathematical formulas. So yes. Now, getting back to Leo's demonstrated something that is called nididhyasanam in Vedanta, and he took one teaching and he meditated on it long enough until he helped himself to, you know, grasp something that is very subtle. And therefore, this is a great inspiration for all of us. What it means to learn this knowledge by follow-up of contemplation. The human intellect is very curious. It wants to know. It cannot stop knowing. You prevent a child from asking questions, the child will continue and persist. cannot help themselves, and we are all like this. To get a human body is to ask questions, is to think, and think until you solve the problem. This is the glory of a human being. Of course, we can redirect that onto different matters, but even if you redirect it away from existence, you're still asking questions. How can I get more money? How can I do better marketing? Where should I advertise? How to get a better paycheck increase, right? So it's curiosity and involvement of your thinking. And when it comes to asking where things come from, we say, well, they come from so-and-so, assuming that you can trace the cause. You say, where does this house come from? And you say, well, the house comes from the architects and the plumbers and electricians. But then you say, well, where does space and time come from? And then you can't explain that. And then what do we do then? An easy way around that is just to attribute it to God. No, it comes from God. Full stop. That way I remain smart, like I know something. But then you can ask questions like, where does God come from, and so on. And that's like, hey, don't ask me anymore, right? So, so we're very specific when it comes to answering what we do know, but then we immediately generalize and offload it to some God or creator when we can't really answer a question. And we've all been subject to this as little ones, right, in school and so on. And you ask these questions and you get dismissed. For this reason, because we have this human intellect, which comes with different orientations, these orientations create a personality that asks different kind of questions relative to creation and where did it come from. One of them is a rationalist or an atheist, and they will say there's no God, right? Now, the reason why they say this is they make their own definition of God, and then they dismiss their own definition. And to that, they say, there's no that. So look at this. I say, God is in heaven, and that's my definition of God, right? And then I say, and therefore that one doesn't exist because it's just so, ludicrous. Where is he? I can't see him. There's no proof. So I dismiss my own definition. This is how the rationalist or the atheist's mind work. You just ask them the question. The next time someone says to you, there's no God, the next question you follow up with is, and what is your definition of God? And let them tell you, and you will see why they dismissed God in the first place. And so, so they write a book like Why I'm Not a Christian, Why I'm Not a Hindu, Why I Don't Believe in 10,000 gods. And then they write a big case scenario to justify those beliefs, how indeed it is just, pseudo, it doesn't make sense. And, and for example, they will take the scriptures literally. They will say God created the world in 7 days. Now, what's the rationalist going to do? Oh, how is that possible? How can you create the world in 7 days when you need the sun? The sun hasn't been created yet, and the day requires the sun. And therefore, I have destroyed the scriptures using this one simple logic. So this is the problem of taking these scriptural statements literally. And on the basis of this literal, they dismiss the entire scriptures and the whole conversation shuts down. And then we have scientific view. The scientific view is, well, the world is off the Big Bang, and this is the origins of our world. We have the religious view or the pragmatic view, a pragmatic person. They say, why does this matter? Why do I need to know, who's the creator? What difference does it make to my life? God doesn't put the food on my plate. My work in the morning and evening puts the food on my plate. Why do you need to know all this stuff? I'm a pragmatic person. Then we have the religious views. The religious view, some of them are about negating rational thinking and use of questioning what you believe in. And so they will say, don't ask questions, just take the word of the scriptures. And so you remain at kind of a surface level of understanding. And therefore, the conclusion is all of these views, they're all points of views, depending on the orientation of the person and the limited knowledge that they have in reference to the creator. So they're all limited standpoints. And you even have, Baptist, for example, well-respected figure in the Western church who says the world came 4,000 years ago, and the dinosaur bones were put by God to test your faith, right, in God. And like this guy is well respected, right? It's got thousands of people. And so, right, and some people buy into that, of course. You can't really help it. It's too much. Now, the universal belief when it comes to the creation is that the world can't come out of, right, nothing. It was created like anything else. There's a creator to this world that we have. The problem is if you say creation, right? So if there's a creator, then obviously this universe is a creation. Now, this word creation has a little problem, because if I show you this bridge and I say this bridge is a creation, and you say, well, what does it imply to say this is a creation? Right? It's a creation. Well, it has two connotations. The first one is the materials are away. The materials are not from here. The materials are from somewhere else. In fact, the material, this is clay, this is from Bali. And the creator is also away, right? We don't know who the creator of this is. So when I say this is a creation, the connotations are twofold. The material is away, and the creator, the maker, is also away. And therefore, when you bring the word creation in reference to the universe, you have the same unconscious problem. We think, therefore, the materials are from somewhere else, and the creator or the maker is also from somewhere else. And therefore, it shuts down one's use of inquiry into the matter further, because I have no clue who the creator is. What's the point of discovering him? I'll never find him. And what's the point of knowing where the materials are from? I'll never know. Okay, so that's the first problem with using the word creation. So what's Vedantic view on creation? It is that what Vedanta says is anything created is not random, but it is well put together. It has a function, a purpose. It has interconnectedness with something else. It's not out of place. It is well put together. It is intelligently put together, because just the way that it's structured or organized will presuppose it was intelligently put together, like this little bridge over here, which is, the step implies there's some person's going to go from here all the way up. This is intelligence. And the bridge to hold the thing together, it implies intelligence. So the creator thought about it before creating this. So in that same way, when we think about things like, the spider's web. Suppose you never saw the spider before and you landed upon the spider's web. What can you infer from the spider's web? Obviously, someone created it first, but whoever created it knows how to create the spider's web. They have knowledge about the structure of the spider's web. They know how to create those, the circles and keep it together. And therefore, the spider's web wasn't just to, help the spider bounce up and down like a trampoline. It also implied that it wants to capture an insect. So the spider obviously has not only knowledge of the spider's web, but also has knowledge about what the spider web is used for, and that is insects. Or you take a bird's nest. Suppose I tell to you now, hey, go outside and create a bird's nest for me right now, please. You get 1 hour. It's not that hard, or is it? Bird's nest. Go out and create a bird's nest. If you look at a bird's nest, it's quite a thing, isn't it? I don't know how to do it. Do you? What's the first thing you will do? You probably go and scour for a bird's nest and quickly borrow knowledge from a bird and see how they made the bird's nest, so you can just copy their stuff. Therefore, the bird has knowledge of the bird's nest. It's able to bend those twigs in a manner it's a very stable structure. It's amazing. Just the bird's nest, you can throw it around and it will preserve its structure. And a single bird does this, and it finds the right kind of twigs. And this hummingbird apparently steals the spider's web and strengthens its nest from the spider's web. So this means that the bird has knowledge, or it's given access to knowledge about the branches and twigs and what kind of branches and twigs I should get. And they should be just the right strength, not too breakable, not too rigid, not too flexible, just the right strength so that the bird's nest can have strength to itself, but also it's not brittle, it is flexible. This is amazing amount of intelligence. Or a bee. A bee is able to make a honeycomb. So not only is the honeycomb a very important structure that we use in laptops or many things today to create stability in our formation, but the bee is one that uses patterns on the petals of flowers to discover whether I have pollinated that flower before or not. Not only does it look at the intricate patterns, we just see a petal, we go, oh, it's all the same. But a bee is able to identify the particular intricate patterns of each flower's petals and thereby notice, I've pollinated this flower just 1 minute ago, and therefore I'm not going to pollinate it again. I'm not going to waste my time. It's also able to identify the unique scent of the flower. And then the bee goes back, look at this. It goes back to the beehive and it communicates with all other bees, 1,000 of them, what flower it has pollinated. That way, those other bees are not going to waste their time and pollinate a flower that needs not to be pollinated again. How is this possible? Let me tell you right now. Go to a field of daisy flowers, like a soccer field of daisy flowers, thousands of them, and go and lick 20 flowers, just lick 20 of them, and then come back and then communicate to 1,000 friends where those flowers are. How are you going to do that? How are you going to tell them where they are? It's a huge field. Are you going to use GPS coordinates? You're borrowing the satellite. How are you going to do that without GPS? Number one. And even if you are successful, how are you going to tell them exactly where specifically those flowers are? I mean, this is mind-boggling. So this intelligence is offered to the bees. And then you look at an organ. Organ is made of many intricate matters put together to make that heart, be able to, pump in and out for 80 years. So this is, and do that 24/7 without letting you down ever, unless there's artery clogging or something. So this is again an intelligence that you can rely upon every single day for the world to function in this cohesive, intricate, interconnected manner. And therefore, if you look at intelligence such as a car is, or a plane. How do we create an airplane? We look at a bird and we look at the flight pattern and the way it bends its wings. And then we borrow that and we insert it into machinery for our own needs. But when we create that airplane in 1903, the Wright brothers, when they had the first successful flight, I believe, is that the end? No. Then you have other people contributing their knowledge and inserting their qualifications into that machinery. And then within 50 years, that car or airplane, you think that's the product of one person? No, that is a contribution of thousands upon thousands of minds behind the scenes, each one which added their own speciality to create that final product. So this means when a human being creates something, there is always space for improvement. Why? Because that creator is not all knowledge. That creator is limited knowledge. But when you create the entire universe of bees, of honeycombs, of flowers, of hearts, of hair, of trees, of oxygen, can you improve that? No, because that creation came from all knowledge. Now, of course, you say, well, I can improve it, but you can't. You can only improve it in reference to seeing, I can put GMOs inside fruits and make them bigger. But that's just modifying, that's manipulating it for whose end? For my own end, for my own profit reasons. I'm not actually improving it. I'm actually denying it a certain nutritional value, but making it perhaps a little bit bigger. So I haven't really improved it at the end of the day. Therefore, whatever comes from limited knowledge can always be improved. And that's why we are technologically always growing. But when it comes from a limitless knowledge, it cannot be improved because there is not one thing that wasn't thought through. There was not one thing that limitless knowledge says, I made a mistake. Darn, I need to come back and fix things up. It doesn't happen. So let's give you the order. Anything that is intelligently put together implies or presupposes knowledge of that thing. And that knowledge has to rest on a conscious being. Just like a human being, whatever they do has to rest on the knowledge of a human has to rest on his consciousness. He has to be aware of that knowledge. So just like limited knowledge has to rest on a conscious being, limitless knowledge also has to rest on a conscious being. Even ignorance has to rest on a conscious being. Knowledge has to rest on a conscious being. Ignorance has to rest on a conscious being. Who is conscious to the ignorance? Who is conscious to the knowledge? That conscious being is conscious to that. Therefore, anything put together intelligently, this implies intelligence in reference to the entire universe put together. We give this a name called nimitta karanam. Nimitta karanam, which is the efficient cause. Why is it the efficient cause? Because as I say with the bees, they are so intelligent, they're able to communicate what flowers were pollinated, and they're efficient at it. They don't waste time. You don't have bees coming back and wasting their time. There's an efficiency there. So the intelligent cause is given this name, efficient cause. That means it doesn't make mistake. It is efficient in what it does. Just like with the spider efficiently makes the web without making any mistakes. The web does exactly what it's supposed to do. Anything put together and another thing put together, a relationship between them implies that the creator of this also created this. That's why they have a relationship. And that creator is in Vedanta what we call Ishvara. And therefore Ishvara is nimitta karanam, the efficient cause. And this creator, Ishvara, rests in a conscious being. He has to be, pervaded by consciousness to use its knowledge so that it can hold this universe together. In the scriptures, there's a logic that we have for this. And it says, Gatasya karta gatanyaha, sarvasya karta sarvanyaha. So what this means is the maker of a pot, in this case, a little container, the maker of a pot knows about the pot. But the maker of sarva, the maker of everything, knows about everything. Okay? So the pot maker knows about how to make a pot. That much. Doesn't even know what's inside the clay, doesn't know the atoms, doesn't even know how to make anything other than a pot. But the creator of everything knows about the pot, knows about the atoms, knows about the person's brain, knows about, how the signals, electrical signals will go from one region of the brain to the other, knows about how to move the arms, how many milliseconds between the thought takes place, and through which veins should it travel in order to move the arm in such a manner as to create a pot, has to know about everything. But not only that, this creator, which is all knowledge, also needs to enjoy power, because you need skills to put your knowledge into action. You can't just know stuff. You need skills. How do I have this push, this push, this force that is compelling me, that is making me put my knowledge into use? And therefore, not only is Ishvara, Ishvara means, by the way, cause of the universe. Not only is Ishvara nimitta karanam, but also in Sanskrit we say it is Sarva Shaktiman. Sarva Shaktiman means all power. Shakti, that means man, that means possessor of all power. So now Ishvara is efficient cause, nimitta karanam, and Sarva Shaktiman, which is almighty. This is why we say in some languages, almighty. Yeah, so all knowledge and almighty, all knowledge and all power. Okay, now look at this. These two are no problems. In fact, religion has no problems about God being all knowledge and all power. But where is the problem now? Let's go into problem mode. It is when you ask the question, okay, I have no problem understanding these two, but where is this Ishvara? Where is this God? Where do I find him? This is where all the arguments start to come. So let's investigate this. First of all, what do we say? What's the first response? The pop response, right? Is above. Now, what do you mean is above? Like intellectually above me, or like spatially above me? And usually they will say he's spatially above me in heaven. Some of them mean both. Not only is he above me in heaven, but he's also above me in my intellect. He's way over my head. Now, Vedanta has no problem saying that heaven exists. In fact, there is more proof that heaven exists than there is absence of proof. Because firstly, the scriptures are considered the authority. They mention there are worlds. And people also are able to, use meditation and certain yoga practices and even psychedelics that will send you to a world which is more real than this one. And you will say this. You will say, like, the world I was in, it was actually more real than this world. And so there's no problem proving heaven. Heaven is there. We have no problem denying that. And that is for a certain, type of person. So Vedanta has no problem with heaven. What we do have a problem with is when you say God is in heaven. So let's question this. So suppose a son asks to his father, so, where is God? And the father says, God is in heaven. And then the son or the daughter will naturally ask, where was God before heaven? Who created heaven, right? Well, God created heaven. Okay, but then where was God before heaven was created? Because there's only two options. You got hell and heaven. So was he in hell? Was it too hot in hell? And so he built a little cooler place called heaven, right? And then the father will say, shut up. This is too much. And therefore, you end up coming from what kind of a parampara? You come from a shut up parampara. It's called a shut up lineage. So we're all experts from those lineages. And we all had this, in our lives, being told to shut up. It's too much, because the father doesn't want to, be hurt. His pride, he's obviously invested in showing that he knows to his daughter or son, right? So now look at this. If I ask you, where is Andre? What am I presupposing? Andre is not here right now. So if I ask, where is God? What am I presupposing? God is not here right now. So what's wrong? Who's at fault? The son or the father? Both. The son asked the wrong question, where is God? And the father subscribed to the Shata Parampara, and therefore the solution is correct your question. This is why when you hear a question, you have to first listen to it and correct the question before answering. A typical example is when people send me an email, they will say, you know, I know that the ego is an illusion, but how does, and then ... And I say, stop. Vedanta doesn't say ego is an illusion. The I sense is just a function of the mind. Or they say, you know, I know that the world is illusion, I say, stop. Nowhere does it say that the Jagat is an illusion. Jagat is mithya. Mithya means dependent reality. The moment you say that the world is illusion, what happens? The inquiry stops. I don't want to have to do anything with the illusion. It's just an illusion. But when you say that the world has a dependent reality, what happens? What is this dependent reality? Therefore, it opens up the inquiry. Therefore, first step is look at the question and make a correction on that basis. Where did the material then come from, right? Where did Ishvara get its material from? Suppose you want to make a roti or a pancake, and you've got skills, and you've got the power, you've got the knowledge, and you've got the skills to make a pancake or a roti. So what are you going to do now, right? Is anything going to happen? You created nothing. You created just nothing. So you need material. So that's not enough. Jnanam is not enough. Shakti is not enough. You need material to make a roti and enjoy yourself. Therefore, where did Ishvara get its material from? Well, suppose you say Ishvara got its material from elsewhere, like outside itself. What does this mean?
That Ishvara is limited and that other objects are coming from somewhere else, so that automatically limits Ishvara into an object.
Yeah. I mean, maybe a joke. And suppose, you know, Ishvara is different from the material. And so what Ishvara now wants to borrow material to create the world. So now Ishvara needs to use a telephone to call material. But Ishvara doesn't have a telephone because the telephone is the material. So how is Ishvara going to make a phone call to the Ishvara of material over there? He can't do it. That's the first problem. Maybe that's a joke one. But Vedantic standpoint is if Ishvara borrows material to create the world, that means the borrowing happened in time. Once upon a time, there was no world. And in time, because what is time? Time is also material. So there was no time, and in time, I borrowed material. Doesn't make sense. That's the first problem. The second problem is, as Lorena said, if the material is away from Ishvara, here's the all knowledge, all power Ishvara, and over there is the material Ishvara. So this means now there's two different things. So now what's this space in between separating knowledge and material? Who created this space in between? And space is nothing but what? Material. Therefore, this is a contradictory, self-contradictory view. It doesn't work because I cannot borrow in time and I cannot borrow away because awayness implies space and in time implies time, and time and space are nothing but material. Therefore, the only conclusion is that material and Ishvara are not two. They are one and the same thing. Therefore, now Ishvara is not only the efficient cause, nimitta karanam, Ishvara is also the material cause, which is called upadana karanam. Upadana karanam. You know, we have an example of a spider. The spider is the efficient cause in reference to the pattern of the web, right? Because it's an intelligently made pattern. It's intelligently made. And the spider is also the material cause in reference to the web, because the web is also, right, coming out of the spider. So this is an example that we have to show that it's possible to have one being, in this case, the spider, who is not only the intelligent cause, but also the material cause. Understand? because usually we look at it like, oh, so the intelligent cause is, the intelligent cause of this is a person, but the material is different from the person. So the spider is used to negate that, to show you that you can have one being from whom both come. However, look at this. In Vedanta, every example has a limit. That's why you have to offset that limit with another example. So now someone's going to say, but the spider walks away. Yes, the spider is the creator of the web, and the web is of the spider, but the spider can just walk away. That's exactly what God does. He's over there, he walked away, and he's letting us here now, suffer or have a good time. Therefore, to offset, we have a better example. We use the dream. In the dream, you are the cause. Out of you arises not only the material for the dream, but also arises the mountains, right? The laws, the conversations, the jokes, the everything that goes on in the dream is intelligence. There's an order and structure to it. So it just shows you that it's this dream example in this context shows you it's possible how from one being you can have not only the intelligence but also the material manifesting out of one being. Okay, therefore you every night become Ishvara in reference to your dream. You become God in reference to your dream. And these people in your dream are looking at you and they're saying, no, this creator of ours, he's in heaven. His name or her name is Rama, Krishna, Vishnu, Brahma. And they start their little scriptures and they start their conversations and they start, arguments. But the whole thing is you. The whole thing is just one cause manifesting as the intelligence. All of those conversations and thinking, and even the people in the dream who are saying, no, consciousness is a product of the brain. They're also manifestations out of you. Consciousness is just a product of the brain and neurology. These are the materialists, which is okay. They have their place also. They're also within one single dream. And throughout the entire dream, from whom they have no existence apart from you. They have no existence apart from you. The entirety of themselves is you. Wherever they look, up, down, left, right, is a reality arising out of you. Whatever they say is only because of those words being none other than you. They have existence no apart from you. The entirety of the dream, wherever they look, in the Himalaya mountains or in their own house, it's none other than the one intelligence, the one material manifesting as different names and forms, making up that complex creation, which is worthy, seemingly worthy of living for, until, one day the Shruti comes by and then offers you some insight into the nature of this dream, and then starts to teach you the very knowledge that you're learning right now in the scriptures. All that is here is material. You're surrounded by material, and material is always pervaded by intelligence and sustained by intelligence. All around you, right? The person's material, your thoughts are material, your memories are material, and material and intelligence is Ishvara. Then where is God? Everywhere, huh? Everywhere.
Everywhere.
Or you could reverse that question, where is God not? In fact, there's, in India, there's a story of a fella who pointed his feet towards an idol. And he was smarter. He was a little, smarter. And he had his feet, and it's disrespectful gesture. And the lady told him, don't point your feet towards the Lord. This is, it's not polite. And this fella said, oh, sorry, tell me, where is God not? And there I will point my feet. Tell me, where is God not? She couldn't answer. Look at this. Because no matter where he points his feet, it's all material. And material is nothing but God. You understand? So therefore, we need not look for God elsewhere or outside or in temples or churches or, in the presence of special liberated beings. Wherever there is material, tell me when you are not surrounded by material, your own hand, right? The plants, the trees, the sky, the moon, the light, day and night, warmth, cold, everything is material. That material is being wonderfully sustained by this intelligence, and material and intelligence is Ishvara. Therefore, where is God not? And so this changes our relationship in reference to what it means to relate to God. I need no longer say, oh Lord, whatever form you are, may you manifest in that form. Right? You need not say that. He's manifesting as everything around you. You no longer have to, some individuals will, they think God is above, and so they will shout so that God hears them because, God is very far. So hey, hear me, right? So you can see how these various misnotions can manifest as, very strange behaviors. What about before creation? Where was this before the manifest universe? Where was this intelligence and this material? And in Chandogya Upanishad, chapter 6, 6-1, there's a verse that says, Asat eva saumya, agra asit ekam eva aditiyam. So it says, Sat eva, existence alone was saumya. Saumya is just a name for a boy. Existence alone was, before all this, existence alone was one without a second. In deep sleep, you are one undivided whole. There's only one nirvikalpam I. There's only one Atma in deep sleep. And from this Atma, as I said to Nitin last week, arises this potential, which is manifesting in a form of a dream. And this dream within it has, very intelligent, complex forms of life and stones and mountains and many different forms. And so like this, just like your dream comes out of you, that means this potential, which was in you, manifests into the world, not manifests into the world because there's no world. It just manifests. And by its manifestation, it creates space-time, space, dream time, dream space, and dream objects, which are populated by all sorts of individuals, which are, then given different names. And the entire thing is sustained by you. And then what happens when you go back into deep sleep? The whole thing gets swallowed into you. All of that knowledge and power that was upholding that dream, that was sustaining that dream, it goes back into the one conscious being, from which the whole thing arose, into which the whole thing is resolved, and by which the whole thing, the dream, was sustained. Just like that, when we speak about the macrocosm, about the universe, it's exactly like that. From one undivided ekam eva advitiyam, from one without a second, from one reality without a second, limitless, arises this world, which we call srishti. Srishti, that means the whole space and time simultaneously comes. It's not like first time and then space, and then slowly objects. The whole thing, just all knowledge, all power manifests, from which these elements, 5 elements, start to combine in a different combination and permutation, and they start to form galaxies and start to form bacteria, single-cell organisms. They start to form multi-cell organisms. They start to form beings which are able to now see, not only just live in the bottom of the oceans, but able to develop senses and pick up vibrations, and then start to feed on other creatures by using their eyes, and eventually develop the eye sense to get a sense of, I want to survive. I want to get away from this. So you take this for granted. This once upon a time was not there. It was just a single cell organism. If someone ate it, that's the end of that. But then it develops this rudimentary intellect and eye sense to be able to go from here to there to there. The fish are over there, therefore that's where the food is. I will go over there and feast. And slowly through the millions of years, this intelligence, these particles arranged, constantly rearranging themselves, start to form a more sophisticated life form until they're able to observe this world and say, who created all this? That took billions of years. Srishti. And then the whole Srishti creation is sustained all throughout. It's not a one-off. It's not like one-off. This thing manifests out of the one without a second, and then he just walks away. No, wherever there is Sat Chit Ananda, that's exactly where all knowledge, all power is. That's where exactly this world is. That's where the particles are. So in every particle, that's where knowledge is. In every knowledge depends on existence awareness. So it's not like a different thing. It's just one reality right now, existence awareness. From the standpoint of its power to manifest the universe, we then call it Ishvara. We say this is all God. This is all Ishvara. And in this power, this knowledge and power, it manifests elements which then intelligently combine by the process of all knowledge and all power. They can intelligently combine and form trees and mountains and space and fire and ability to see and process data. The whole thing is within this one knowledge power whose truth is Sat and Chit. So wherever you find material, that's where you find all knowledge, all power. That's where you find Sat and Chit. It's not two different things. It's not like Sat Chit once upon a time was, and now we have all knowledge, all power. It's all one and the same, looked at from different standpoints. This is what vision of oneness means. Wherever Sat and Chit is, that is where Ishvara is. That's exactly where the manifestations of Ishvara are. And those manifestations have no existence apart from Ishvara. And Ishvara has no existence apart from Sat and Chit. And that Sat and Chit is giving existence to this and sustaining this entire universe. And that universe I am not apart from. Therefore, I am within this one grand order, enjoying it right now at every level.
At the same time, endorsing the phenomenon of Maya.
Maya will be introduced soon. In fact, maybe we can mention something about Maya now. Maya is when this power and potential to manifest is in potential. This knowledge and power is not manifest yet. So in that standpoint, we call it Maya, but when it manifests the universe, we call it Ishvara. So it's just the same thing. It's knowledge, power. One is non-manifest. That means space, time, and objects have not come. Then we call it Maya. When it manifests, just like when the dream manifests, the character inside the dream, okay, looks at the dream and says, who created all this? And then we give that name Ishvara. That one who is all knowledge, all power. Okay, so it's the same thing, just looked at from two different standpoints. In fact, I'll extend that one more time. Not only is Sat and Chit right here, Ishvara is also here, so is Maya. How is that so? Because look at this. What does Maya mean? It means all knowledge, all power is in potential. Is tomorrow here now? So tomorrow, by definition, is in potential. That means Maya. Is your cell right now, forget about tomorrow, it's too far. What about your cell right now, which is constantly regenerating itself millions of times over and over again that we don't see? What about the next microsecond from now on, which the cell is not enjoying right now? Where is that potential? Oh, it's not here now, but now it is. So when it manifests, that's called Ishvara. When it's in potential, it's called Maya. So it's constantly Maya, Ishvara, Maya, Ishvara, Maya, manifest, potential, potential, manifest, potential, manifest. So not only do you find Maya here, That means what is yet to happen tomorrow, right now. You also find the manifestation, which is the very knowledge holding this manifestation, but you also find Sat and Chit. Therefore, they're all realities are right here, right now.
I think sometimes we have that struggle in our mind that things are linear, and that's where we get stuck. We think of things in linear terms because we measure everything between objects and everything. So we're stuck in that sort of way of thinking, whereas it's always happening all the time now.
It's all the time now, because just like if you look at a plant, you cannot really see the how it's moving, you know, and responding to the environment. You just see one single frame. But if you do the what do they call the, you know, when they put the camera and they record constantly, you can see the flower dancing, you know, to the sun. So, you know, it's right. You see the aliveness there. And so just like that, we don't really see, you know, I just see this face, but this face is totally different from this face. And this face is totally different from this face, time lapse, right?
Yeah.
But we
for example, adding to Lorena's comment, in fact, apart from linear, we are living in the times of real time. In fact, there is no real, there is no time. Am I right?
Well, you know, the veil now is Avarana Shakti. Okay, actually, let me just mention this. See, do you have knowledge about, if you didn't have a veil, then you should be able to create a bird's nest right now. Go ahead, create me a bird's nest. You are veiled, but the bird is not veiled in reference to the nest. So the veiling, right, the concealing power, Avarana Shakti, is constantly operating. Were it not operating, there would be no ignorance. Everyone would know who they are the moment they're born, but nobody knows who they are when they're born. That's why we go into a spiritual journey. So now that's Avarana. Now time, you see, there's this thing about time is, you know, not there. Time is just change, right? In reference to how many changes something happens, in reference to that, we attribute time units. If something changes a lot, then we say it's 5 minutes worth of change. If something changes just a little bit, we say, well, it's 1 second worth of change. So time is just another name of how we make sense of this constantly changing world in the presence of knowledge and power. But time itself is, right, nothing but you know, a manifestation, or just to facilitate change. So time is this sustenance, the sthiti. We call it srishti sthiti, the sustenance.
Back to Ishvara and Maya. Ishvara is the creator, sustainer, destroyer, correct?
Srishti sthiti pralaya. So yes, the creator, the manifester, the one that's present all the time, sustaining that which is manifest, and the one that changes the current for the sake of allowing the new to come in. So we don't necessarily say destroyer, because nothing's really destroyed. It's only changing. It's only changing. The old goes away and it gives way to the new. Right? Like your cell right now. Your cell is in one state, state A, suppose, state A. But just 1 millisecond from now, it is already in state B. It's a completely different state. So state A, the malign cell, right? The you know, the little bit kind of a cancerous cell was gone, and it got repaired by your nervous system, and now that cell is enjoying a completely new creation. It's a completely new sustenance having right now. So in that sense, the old got removed in order to give way to the new.
Oh, no, sorry. What I was trying to get to was when you were talking about Maya as being in potential, and as Ishvara is the creator, sustainer, and changer, that I was trying to fathom how Maya, and do you understand what I'm asking?
Got it. So I'll give you an example. Just take an ocean wave example. We don't need water right now. Take the ocean right now. Imagine the ocean. Ocean is moving, right? Constantly moving. So in reference to the manifest waves, like high waves, low waves, whatever, right? Whatever kinds of waves. Right now is Ishvara. That's what it's manifest right now. But what about 1 second from now? the whole thing is going to be different. So that potential, but it will be there, right? When it comes, it will be there. It will manifest in the present. So 1 second from now, it's not manifest. That's called Maya. But that all knowledge, all power will manifest a completely different ocean. I mean, literally from China to India to Australia, the whole ocean will be different the next second. So the manifest, so that means the unmanifest potential has turned into the manifest right now. But that right now, Ishvara is instantly gone the moment it's manifest. So you can't ever quite say it's manifest or unmanifest right now. It's one and the same at the same time. Because by the time you catch it, it's a new thing already. That's why I say you cannot say once upon a time Maya was, and then Ishvara came, and then Ishvara will be gone, and then Maya will come. It's all happening in this very second. And the truth of the whole ocean, of the wave and the ocean, whether it's manifest or unmanifest, is the water, is Sat and Chit. So this means the potential has no existence apart from Sat and Chit, and that which is manifest has no existence apart from Sat and Chit. Purnamadav, Purnamidam, Purnat, Purnamudachyate, Purnasya, Purnamadaya, Purnameva avashishyate. Om Shanti, Shanti, Shanti.